Deep in the dense jungles of central China, where the mists cling to mountains like ghostly shrouds, there rises a structure so massive, so impossibly ancient, that it rewrites everything we thought we knew about human history. It's not in Egypt, not in Mesopotamia, not even on the radar of most historians. Yet this 500-foot-tall pyramid, covered in vegetation and cloaked in mystery, is real. Locals whisper of gods descending from the sky. Farmers speak of strange bones, giants with elongated skulls. And deep within the structure, murals depicting humanoid figures with glowing eyes, surrounded by machines no ancient civilization should have had. But here's the twist. Official history insists this place doesn't matter. Archaeologists dismiss it. The government restricts access. It's as if someone, or something, wants it forgotten. And the people who built it? They shouldn't exist. Because according to mainstream science, they never did. This is the forbidden tale of the White Pyramid of Xi'an, an ancient wonder that defies logic, challenges timelines, and suggests a race of builders history has erased. But uncovering its truth leads us down a path of cover-ups, strange artifacts, and a legacy far older than the Great Pyramid of Giza. Part 1 begins with a secret photograph that was never meant to be seen. It was March 1945. World War II was ending, but the skies were still dangerous. U.S. Army Air Corps pilot James Gossman was flying a reconnaissance mission over central China, heading back to Assam, India, after a supply run to the Chinese nationalist forces. Below him stretched endless miles of mist-shrouded mountains, dense forests, and deep river valleys. Uncharted terrain in the west. Then, through a break in the clouds, he saw it. A gleaming white structure, towering above the landscape. Perfectly symmetrical, geometric, and massive. He circled back, stunned. It was a pyramid, but unlike any he'd ever imagined. This wasn't a ruin. It looked untouched, as if it had just been built. Gleaming white limestone bricks covered its surface. Its summit was flat, and it had a capstone that shimmered in the sun. He grabbed his camera and took photos, classified photos. When Gossman landed, he submitted his report to the military. What happened next? Silence. The images vanished. His report was buried. For decades, the story existed only in whispers, retellings of a pilot's fantastic tale. It would have been dismissed as myth, if not for a second sighting. In 1947, Colonel Maurice Sheehan, Far East Director for Trans World Airlines, flew the same route. He, too, saw the massive White Pyramid, standing in the Qinling Mountains near the ancient city of Xi'an. He spoke publicly. Newspapers picked up the story. And then, once again, the silence returned. No follow-ups. No expeditions. No confirmation. Why? Because what these men saw didn't fit the narrative. You see, there aren't supposed to be pyramids in China, especially not ones this large. The Great Pyramid of Giza stands at about 455 feet tall. The structure Gossman and Sheehan reported seeing? Over 500 feet. And buried beneath centuries of soil and forest, the truth remained hidden, until satellite imaging technology came along. In the 1990s, amateur researchers using Google Earth and military satellite data discovered strange geometric patterns beneath the terrain surrounding Xi'an. Over 100 pyramid-like structures appeared to the landscape, eroded, camouflaged, forgotten. But one of them stood out. A perfect square base, symmetrical angles, dimensions rivaling the greatest ancient monuments in the world. The so-called White Pyramid of Xi'an wasn't a myth. It was real, and it was massive. But as interest grew, something disturbing happened. The Chinese government restricted access to the region. Foreign archaeologists were barred from excavating. Local officials denied the existence of any such pyramid, even as aerial photos circulated among independent researchers. When pressed, authorities claimed the mounds were simply burial tombs, natural hills shaped by erosion. But the photos told a different story. Sharp angles, geometric proportions, orientation aligned with celestial patterns, just like Giza. And then came the local stories. Elderly farmers spoke of sky gods who built the structure in a single night. Strange lights hovering over the area. Bones of giants unearthed during nearby excavations, quietly taken away by soldiers. This wasn't just archaeology. It was something more. A cover-up. A deliberate attempt to erase a chapter of human or non-human History. Because the builders of this pyramid, they don't match any known culture. Not the Han, not the Shang, not the Sumerians, not even the Olmecs or Egyptians. They belong to a civilization without a name. A race that, according to history, shouldn't exist. Travel just outside Xi'an, into the heart of the Qinling mountain range, and you'll find yourself in a place suspended in time. Towering pines shroud the slopes, their roots winding through centuries of untouched soil. Crickets hum beneath dense undergrowth, and among the trees, massive earthen mounds, rising from the forest floor like sleeping giants. To the trained eye, these aren't natural hills. They're ancient structures, worn down by time. Some have collapsed inward. Others have been camouflaged with purpose, intentionally planted with vegetation to make them blend into the landscape. Locals know what they are. They always have. But when asked about their origins, they don't speak of emperors or dynasties. They whisper of the sky people. Legends passed down through generations tell of pale-skinned, tall beings with slanted, glowing eyes and long white robes. They came down from the sky in metal dragons that roared like thunder and lit up the night. They didn't conquer. They taught. Agriculture, astronomy, mathematics. And then, one day, they disappeared. It sounds like mythology. But buried beneath the soil, remnants of their legacy tell a stranger story. Archaeological digs, few and tightly restricted, have unearthed non-Chinese artifacts around these pyramidal structures. Obsidian tools not native to the region. Crystalline discs engraved with microgrooves, like ancient records. And most disturbingly, skeletons that defy explanation. One in particular, excavated near the Baigong region to the west, sent shockwaves through the scientific underground. The skull was elongated, the cranial capacity 30 larger than that of a modern human. The eye sockets? Enormous. The bone structure? Finer, lighter, but unnaturally durable. Chinese authorities declared it a genetic mutation. The remains were quickly seized. No independent analysis was permitted. But for a brief moment, photos leaked online and then disappeared. Those who saw them began asking questions. Was this one of the original builders? How could a structure like the White Pyramid, so massive, so mathematically perfect, have been constructed in a region with no known civilization capable of such engineering during the time period it likely dates to? Carbon dating of organic materials near the site suggests a timeline as early as 5000 BCE, predating the Egyptian pyramids by nearly 2 millennia. But if not the ancient Chinese, then who? Enter the Dropa. In the 1930s, Chinese archaeologist Chi Pu Ti and his team made a strange discovery in the Bayan Har Mountains, hundreds of miles from Xi'an, yet eerily connected. They found a series of caves filled with small, frail skeletons, averaging just 4 feet tall, with unnaturally large skulls and delicate limbs. Alongside them, stone discs with perfect circular holes in the center, inscribed with tiny hieroglyphs arranged in spirals. The message, once translated decades later, was chilling. We came down from the skies. Our spacecraft crashed. We cannot return. These beings, calling themselves the Dropa, claim to have come from a distant star system, only to become stranded on Earth thousands of years ago. The mainstream dismissed it all as pseudoscience, a hoax. Yet independent researchers began connecting dots. The Dropa caves lie in the same latitude as the Xi'an pyramids. The skeletal descriptions match the strange remains found near the White Pyramid, and the oral legends of both regions tell of visitors from the stars and the structures they left behind. Could it be that the White Pyramid wasn't just a tomb, but a marker? A monument built not by ancient Chinese dynasties, but by a race far older and not entirely human? A civilization without a name, wiped from memory, or buried on purpose? Because the implications of such a race existing and building on Earth before recorded history even began would tear apart everything we think we know about human origin, ancient technology, and the truth behind the myths of gods descending from the heavens. And perhaps that's why the pyramid was hidden, not by time, but by design. At the base of the White Pyramid, nestled beneath thick layers of earth and centuries of fallen leaves, lies a zone archaeologists dare not dig. Not because of law, because of fear. When local farmers first plowed the surrounding fields during Mao's Great Leap Forward, they unearthed strange objects. Metallic orbs, perfectly spherical and impossibly smooth, objects that resisted rust and were despite being buried for untold centuries. Children played with them. Then soldiers arrived, took them away. No explanation. The next morning, the field was closed. Permanently. Those spheres weren't isolated anomalies. They were part of a pattern, scattered across the Lus Plateau of Shaanxi province, where the pyramid silently looms. Locals occasionally find artifacts that should not exist. Items that match no known dynasty, no known culture, and no known material science from any ancient period. Some items are simple, gears with no wear, tiny screws embedded in coal, or transparent crystal rods that emit a faint electromagnetic signal. Others are much more disturbing. In 1995, a rogue team of researchers sneaked into the restricted zone near the Maoling Mausoleum, home to one of the lesser-known Xi'an pyramids. What they discovered still sends chills through the underground community of forbidden archaeology. They found a mural, half eroded by moisture, depicting figures, not human, at least not entirely. The beings had large, slanted eyes, bulbous heads, and strange devices attached to their arms. One pointed skyward, where a disc-shaped craft hovered over the pyramid. Another held a human child. And beneath the mural, partially buried under rubble, was a metallic artifact resembling a circuit board. It was confiscated by Chinese authorities within 24 hours. No lab ever officially analyzed it. But photos taken before its removal show etched pathways, node-like connectors, and a layout disturbingly similar to modern microchips. All of this existed 5,000 years ago, or more. But perhaps the most controversial artifact ever linked to the White Pyramid was never supposed to be found at all. It was 2002, and a group of hikers ventured into the restricted Qinling area without permits. Deep in the forest, they stumbled upon the edge of the main pyramid, completely overgrown, but unmistakably geometric. While exploring, one man fell through a soft patch of ground into a small, dry chamber. What he saw should have changed history. The chamber walls were lined with symbols, not Chinese characters, but a pictographic language resembling Sumerian cuneiform fused with Egyptian hieroglyphs. In the center of the room sat a sarcophagus, unlike any seen before. It was constructed not from stone, but from a seamless metallic alloy that had no welds, seams, or locks. And inside, a perfectly preserved skeleton, over 7 feet tall, with an elongated skull, 6 fingers, and a chest cavity that housed a metallic implant fused to the spine. It was alien. There's no other word for it. They took photos, tried to retrieve a piece of the material. It was too hard to break. When they returned 2 days later with tools and a plan, the chamber was gone. Sealed. Reburied. Soldiers were now patrolling the perimeter. To this day, only a handful of grainy images remain, passed through encrypted forums, labeled as hoaxes. But ask anyone who spent time researching forbidden Chinese pyramids, and they'll tell you the same thing. That chamber was real, and it was never meant to be opened. The implications of the artifacts found around Xi'an are staggering. Advanced metallurgy thousands of years before it should have existed. Hieroglyphic hybrids no linguist can trace. Biological remains that break the rules of genetics. And objects that emit low-frequency hums, still functional after being buried for millennia. The White Pyramid isn't just a relic of the past. It may be a machine, a beacon, or even a vault containing remnants of a civilization whose rise and fall predates all of recorded history. And maybe, just maybe, it's not inactive. Maybe it's waiting. Because some locals swear that on certain nights, during equinoxes and eclipses, the pyramid glows faintly beneath the trees, as if something inside is still alive. For decades, the White Pyramid of Xi'an remained a strange footnote, a myth whispered in fringe circles and dismissed by academic elites. But the question isn't why it was ignored. The question is, who made sure it stayed buried? Let's start with the Chinese government. Officially, the structures near Xi'an are labeled as mausoleum mounds, burial tombs of Han and Tang emperors. Some are. Many aren't. Yet they're all painted with the same historical brush, locked behind barbed fences, military patrols, and no research designations. In fact, foreign archaeologists are explicitly forbidden from conducting excavations at many of these pyramid sites. Even Chinese scholars require special clearance. and only a select few ever receive it. What are they hiding? The censorship traces back to the 1960s, during Mao Zedong's Cultural Revolution. The regime's goal was clear: destroy all traces of feudal superstition, rewrite history in the party's image, and erase inconvenient truths. Historical anomalies, especially ones that didn't serve the narrative of Chinese supremacy, were buried. Literally, documents referencing non-Han builders of the Xi'an structures were removed from archives. Museum artifacts were reclassified as modern forgeries. And entire excavation sites were quietly reforested under government landscaping initiatives. But it didn't stop with China. Western academia played a role too. When reports of James Gossman's and Colonel Sheehan's pyramid sightings emerged in the 1940s, they were met with interest, briefly. Then, radio silence. Why? Because accepting their claims would have forced scholars to acknowledge that an advanced, pyramid-building civilization may have existed in East Asia before Egypt, before Mesopotamia, even before recorded time. It would dismantle the linear narrative of human civilization taught in every textbook. That's dangerous. In the 1990s, an Australian researcher named Hartwig Hausdorff attempted to bring attention to the Xi'an pyramids. He traveled to China, gathered satellite images, and wrote extensively about the structure's non-traditional alignments, some of which mirrored the Orion constellation, just like Giza. His findings? Labeled pseudo-archaeology. He was mocked, sidelined, and blacklisted from academic conferences. But the campaign of erasure didn't end with mockery. It turned digital. Today, if you search for the White Pyramid of Xi'an on major search engines or mapping software, you'll find very little. Most high-resolution images of the region are blurred. Coordinates often redirect to barren terrain. Government mapping APIs restrict zoom functions over the Qinling Range. It's not a glitch. It's deliberate. The pyramid is there, but you're not allowed to see it. Even more suspicious are the foreign researchers who tried to expose the site and suffered for it. Dr. Jonathan Vance, an American anthropologist, published a paper in 2008 detailing cranial anomalies found in skeletal remains from Shaanxi province, elongated skulls with epigenetic markers not found in any modern ethnic group. Days after the study gained attention, it was pulled offline. Vance was fired from his university post and discredited. A year later, he disappeared while traveling in Tibet. He was never seen again. Coincidence? Or something more orchestrated? Many believe there's a coordinated effort by both Eastern and Western powers to suppress this story, to protect a version of history built on fragile assumptions. A version where humans emerged from caves, discovered fire, and climbed the slow ladder to greatness, alone. But what if we weren't alone? What if the White Pyramid proves that an older race walked the earth before us, one erased by time, disaster, or intention? And what if remnants of that race still exist? Because buried beneath the layers of misinformation, a chilling possibility remains. This isn't just about a pyramid. It's about a civilization that still has influence today, a bloodline that never truly vanished. And its secrets may not be lost. They may be guarded by those who benefit most from keeping them hidden. There are anomalies in the human record, genetic puzzles that don't quite fit, skulls too large, bloodlines too rare, mutations too advanced for the time they emerged. Some scientists call it punctuated equilibrium, sudden jumps in evolution. Others suggest migration, climate change, random mutation. But a few, working quietly in the shadows, propose something far more disturbing: intervention. And at the center of this theory, the builders of the White Pyramid. Let's rewind. In the early 2000s, a group of geneticists in Beijing published a quiet, peer-reviewed study on mtDNA, mitochondrial DNA, variations in isolated Chinese ethnic populations. Buried deep in the data was something strange, a strand of genetic markers, unusually clustered, non-Eurasian, and entirely absent from global DNA databases. It was ancient. It didn't match Neanderthal, and it didn't match Homo sapiens. It was something else. The sequence was dubbed Shaoxian anomaly. The results were quickly withdrawn. The data was scrubbed, but not before rogue academics took notice. One such independent researcher, Dr. Alain Clarix, cross-referenced this anomaly with unverified genetic samples taken from the elongated skulls found near Xi'an in the 1990s, samples that had been smuggled out before the government sealed the sites. The match? 99.6 identical. Whatever built the White Pyramid didn't just leave behind stone and metal. They left behind their blood. But who, or what, were they? The Dropa theories remain prominent. Extraterrestrial beings stranded on Earth. But not all researchers agree they were alien. Some believe the builders were a forgotten hominid species, parallel to Homo sapiens, but wiped out in prehistory, perhaps by climate, natural disaster, or deliberate extinction. Ancient Chinese texts, those not rewritten or destroyed, hint at their presence. The Shanhai Jing, a mythogeographic text over 2,000 years old, describes pale giants who lived in the West, communicated without speaking, and rode dragons of fire into the heavens. The Han Shu, a first-century history book, mentions a race called the Qiyu, described as metal-skinned, warlike, and not of earthly origin. More than myth. Consider this. Cultures around the world describe gods descending from the sky, building monumental structures, and teaching early humans. The Anunnaki in Mesopotamia, the Viracochas in South America, the Apkallu, the Nephilim, the Watchers, all giant, luminous, non-human, and lost. Could the builders of the White Pyramid be part of that same global forgotten race? There's one more detail. Several secret societies throughout history, most notably the Dragon Throne cults of Imperial China, claimed descent from sky ancestors. These elites intermarried only within a tight circle, believed they held divine authority, and preserved rituals involving star alignments and blood offerings. To this day, some ruling families in Asia claim lineage back to these starborn ancestors. Not metaphorically, literally. Could this explain the ongoing suppression? If certain global elites trace their power, their wealth, their bloodlines to these ancient beings, then preserving the illusion of human uniqueness becomes paramount. Expose the truth, and everything collapses. History, religion, power structures, identity. And here's where things get darker. The White Pyramid may not just be a relic. Some theorists believe it's a time capsule. Or worse, a communication device. They suggest the materials found within, quartz, magnetite, crystalline structures, aren't decorative. They're technological, designed to store information, or perhaps to send it. One decrypted document, circulating among fringe researchers, claims that during solar maximums, the pyramid emits low-frequency pulses, signals. Some believe these frequencies affect human consciousness, unlocking dormant parts of the brain, or rewriting them. Others fear it's a beacon, that the lost race who built it didn't vanish. They're just waiting for a signal, waiting to return. And when they do, the bloodlines they seeded will be ready. At the heart of the White Pyramid lies a void, not just a literal hollow chamber, but a symbolic absence, a deliberate blank spot in our collective memory, a silence so deep it has swallowed entire bloodlines, buried advanced technology, and erased an entire species from the timeline of Earth. And yet it persists. In 2013, under extreme secrecy, a joint team of Chinese military engineers and archaeologists allegedly conducted a limited exploration beneath the White Pyramid using ground-penetrating radar and remote drones. What they found remains classified, but according to a leaked transcript from a defector in 2015, the chamber beneath the central axis revealed a structure not made of stone, but of an unknown alloy, smooth and black, humming faintly. Inside, not a tomb, not a treasure chamber, but what the report referred to as a sealed containment vault, a vault containing biological material and something else. The defector described it as a machine intelligence core, constructed of concentric crystal disks suspended in magnetic fields, a device that pulsed with faint light, a device that seemed aware. There was debate among the team. Some believed it was a storage drive of ancient knowledge. Others thought it was a consciousness, a mind. One whispered it was a beacon, waiting to activate when conditions were right. Then the project was abandoned. The official reason? Geological instability. But the reality was more chilling. The core reacted to proximity. It changed frequency. Its glow intensified. And two researchers, reportedly exposed to the chamber longer than allowed, suffered neurological collapse. Nightmares. Seizures. One died within a week. The other vanished after being transferred to a military hospital. The site was sealed again. No further entry allowed. All personnel reassigned. Silenced. So what lies beneath the White Pyramid? Maybe it's just a myth. A legend born of confusion, Cold War paranoia, and our endless hunger for cosmic origins. Or maybe it's the final key to understanding humanity's forgotten past. Because if the builders of this pyramid were not Homo sapiens, if they seeded bloodlines, left behind technology, and buried a machine that still pulses with unknown intelligence, then the story of mankind is not linear. It's cyclical, punctuated by resets, collapses, erasures, each time, leaving just enough behind to start again, without ever remembering. And perhaps that's the point. The pyramid isn't just a monument. It's a message, a memory tomb, a warning that we weren't the first, that we might not be alone, and that we're being watched. The symbols on its walls may one day be translated. The core may one day awaken. But until then, it sleeps beneath the forest, buried, forgotten, guarded by those who know the truth, and fear what will happen if the world finds out. The White Pyramid of Xi'an is not just a mystery lost to time. It is a deliberate silence, a void in our history too dangerous to fill. What if it truly was the product of a lost race? A species that predated us or created us? What if the myths of gods from the sky were not metaphors, but memories? If even a fraction of what we've uncovered is true, then the timelines we trust, the evolution we're taught, the history we defend, all begin to crumble. Because this isn't just about one pyramid in a remote Chinese forest. It's about a global pattern, monuments too advanced, artifacts too precise, DNA too inconsistent, and bloodlines still walking among us that don't quite belong. Maybe that's why the story has been buried so deep. Not to protect the past, but to protect those who still benefit from the lie. So we ask, what do you believe? Was the White Pyramid just another tomb? Or the smoking gun of a civilization we were never meant to remember? Leave your thoughts in the comments below. If you want more hidden truths, lost history, and forbidden knowledge from the edge of human understanding, subscribe and hit the bell icon. Because the deeper we dig, the stranger it gets. And some secrets were never meant to be unearthed.